If you've stuck around for my channel for a while now, you would have seen I've had some editorial assistants on here, but this editorial assistant in particular worked at Beano, which is a comics magazine. I studied at Aberdeen University. I did English and legal studies there. While I was at Aberdeen, I did a placement. I sort of did a work experience at something called the General Teaching Council for Scotland, or GTCS. They have a magazine that they design, that they make, and it gets sent out to all their members, and I did a placement with the magazine. I'd been writing and dabbling in sort of journalism and publishing high school, but this sort of really reinforced to me that that's what I wanted to do. And it was a month long, so I really got to see the process of a magazine being made, researching stories, making blog posts. I also did at one point a placement internship at the Press and Journal, the newspaper in Aberdeen, which was really great fun. I actually got a byline and a front page story, which I always forget that I did because it's a daily newspaper, so by the next day it's gone, it's forgotten about, but it was really interesting. I got to go out on site, interview people, speak to people, collect quotes and things like that. While I was at Aberdeen, I also was part of the student newspaper, so again I was writing, I was editing, and I really got into editing at that point because you get sent in lots and lots of articles, or maybe people send something in and you had a word limit and it had to be 800 words max, you get set in 3,000. That kind of thing has happened, so you have to edit it right down to get it to within the word limit and still make it as readable a story as possible. After I graduated from Aberdeen, I sort of spoken to some people that I'd met when I was doing my placement. One of them actually suggested to me that I should have a look at Edinburgh Napier's publishing course, because they do a lot on magazine, but they also get like a real good basis of the publishing industry, plus great connections to people in the industry, which was a really big thing. I'd lived in Aberdeen for 4 years. I'd done a year abroad, so I hadn't even spent the 4 years in Aberdeen. Didn't really have much of a base for a network and things like that, and from what I could gather, that was a lot of what it would help you along in the publishing industry. So I went and did the MSc for publishing at Edinburgh Napier University. I got to do loads of really cool things. We had a book project, which mine got printed, which is really cool. I think it's actually on my bookcase somewhere. Yeah, it's in among my bookcase somewhere, a copy of it. I also got to do a few internships, placements. One of them actually I got offered, I went to an event there and I ran into someone that I knew from my GTCS, remembered me from that time and said, well, if you need a placement for your placement module, give me a call. Things like that, that's where suddenly you go, that makes sense to have a network, to be able to sort of speak to people and get advice, learn, but also it creates this thing that if you're maybe in need, you're looking for a job or help, people are able to provide it, which always reminds me that people in publishing are so lovely. Like, they're so happy and willing to help. Did that, I did a placement at Foodies and I did a placement at Deco Comics, which they're really great companies to sort of have a look at and see what they're doing. All very different, so I really got a basis on magazine publishing as well as a little bit of children's publishing. After I graduated, I was looking for a job and the job at Beano came up. I applied and then I got an interview, which I didn't expect at all because I was a massive Beano fan as a kid, but I thought that job's going to get so many applications, so many people are going to apply, why would they want me? And then I got an interview. The same day I actually got my dissertation results, which was fantastic. It was really great because I did really well. So it was a really happy day. Yeah, and then I got offered the job. Because we're a weekly comic, I tend not to think of my job as, I don't think of things in day-to-day basis, but more actually on a week-by-week basis. Because we have to do very similar things every week, there'll be certain things that I do every single week without fail. That is what I do, and those are actually easier to explain and more interesting because just on one day I might not do too much to do with one aspect, but another day I'll do loads on another aspect. So it's always useful, that's why it's easier to think of it in that way. Every week I read scripts when they come in. I'm in charge of Dangerous Dan, Billy Whiz, Calamity James and Nasher and Nipper at the moment, so I get to read all of their scripts when they come in. We also get artwork in every week. Because we're a weekly comic, every week we deal with about 10 different issues, all in different stages of their production schedule. So you have to sort of be able to know which bits you're getting. So I'll get scripts in for 1 week, artwork in for another week, writing features for a third week, I'll be doing other things for another week, that kind of thing. So when I say I'm getting artwork in, it's not for the scripts that I'm reading then, it's for the artwork, for the stuff that I'm writing up this time. Same with reading pages, I'll be reading pages for a different issue altogether compared to all the other ones. The characters that I'm in charge of, all the stuff comes through me to sort of keep continuity so that if maybe an artist has read a script wrong or something like that, maybe they've misinterpreted what's supposed to happen, you'll be able to pick that up really quickly because you've already read the script. So we have 4 editorial team members and they all deal with different characters. And those are the ones I deal with. I'll also, when I get scripts in, we come up with feature ideas to go with those characters, those scripts. We like our features. A feature is just an activity page attached to a script. Things like word searches, joke pages, prank pages, spot the difference, code breakers, where's Wally type things, maze puzzles, lots and lots of different things we can do. I did one that was like the Mento and Coke trick, which was really good fun. You got to do that and then you looked up the science behind it to help teach the kids. Come up with feature ideas that relate to the script that we've just been reading. Sometimes features aren't chosen, but you still have to think up ideas for every character just in case we need a spare page. It's always good to have a bank of ideas in there. I'll also be writing features for another week, and so yeah, they'll be decided by my editor when we get our laydown in, and I'll note them down, get the script written, get the sort of brief, the commission for the artwork to get done, and then it will get sent off to an artist to draw. I also do a lot of our competition admin. First one I do, which is my favourite, is the Beano Boss competition. That's when a kid gets to be boss of the Beano for a week. They get cartoonified, appear in their own story, get to choose a star letter, because our readers' letters get sent in. And we choose them to appear on our letters page. So the Beano Boss gets to choose their favourite. They obviously get to see it before it's in print. They get to see the prank before it's in print. They also get to see the jokes that appear at the foot of the pages before they appear. They also get a super amazing sneak peek, which is they get to see the long story, or our longest story, sort of 4 pages before it appears in the comic. So while it's still script form, which is really cool for them. And they get to sort of see how comic strip will develop, go from just words. They get to see storyboarded versions of it, so it's words and a bit of art to full artwork with balloons, all that kind of, you can see all the changes that we make. I also have sort of weekly feature pages that I write specifically, which are the prank pages, joke page, and the letters page, which relates to the fact that I do the Beano Boss competition, so it's easier for me to collate all the information together if it's just me dealing with it. The other competitions that I do are the letters pages, so I choose the winners of those letters pages, sort of email them out to let them know they'll be appearing when they're going to appear, and that they'll win a prize, or they'll receive a prize for appearing. So I'll be dealing with that. I also organise the prize, which comes from our lovely team in London who do our merchandise or online shop. They always have some great ideas for me to cool prizes first to send out to the kids. And the third sort of like group of competitions I do are our weekly competition. I don't choose those competitions, but I do all the admin for them. So contacting parents, sending PR companies their details, getting prizes sent out, that kind of thing. So that's kind of, those are the other competition stuff that I do. I also write an online sort of like summing up teaser for the week ahead, if the issue that's coming out next week is the 6th of April. I'll be doing a little sort of blog style piece for the week before that will go on the website, just in case anybody's wanted to know what's going to happen in this week's Beano. Oh, I'm going to find out. So yeah, so those are kind of all of my weekly tasks that I have to do. I also proof pages. I proof pages as they come round, as our designers balloon them. So when we get our scripts, when we get our artwork in, we will take the script that we have, we will take the artwork, and we will sort of write up. Write up just means removing all of the description and names of people, of what, like, you know, when you say Smithy is saying da da da. So we remove all of that kind of like extraneous text to just what people are saying, what is in the caption panels, and what is any sound effects we need to add. Take it down to that, and then you mark it on the artwork, or a copy of the artwork, who's saying those balloons, which character on this panel is saying it. And you do that for all your characters, and then they get sent to the designers where they balloon it. Ballooning, for people who maybe don't know an awful lot about comics, more commonly for most people they tend to assume it's putting the speech bubbles on. But no, officially they're called balloons, not speech bubbles. Once the designers have ballooned it, put the balloons on, put the text on, the caption panels, all that kind of thing, it gets sent round our editorial team for reading. We read it, and then if there's any changes to be made, we note them down, we call them cores, and then we send the cores back with the page back to the designers. They apply the corrections, put it all together in one big version called the dummy, which we call the dummy. The dummy essentially is, if you've seen Ugly Betty, this might be a wee bit old in a reference, but if you haven't watched Ugly Betty, I recommend it. What they call the book, and it's like a big file of all the pages of that issue, all printed out, put in this file in order, so you can see it as if it was an actual magazine. That's kind of the idea, so you can read it in print, in person, as if it was the printed magazine. Unfortunately now we used to print it out when we were in the office, but now it's done by a big PDF. So I'll read that every week as well, making changes if we need to. If you don't have this kind of sense of humour, I'm sorry. One really interesting thing that we've got to do was we got sent an email round asking us to judge the best fart sound. Yep, that was my job that day. We had to listen to various recordings of fart sounds made with their hands, made with elbows. I don't know where they got them from. And we had to judge which one was the best, which one was the funniest. That's a weird one. It also discussed about what colour you should have dog poos in a magazine. That's a really odd question to have as well. The fact that you can have an argument about it shows the level of maturity and sophistication that we have at the Beano office. My favourite part about my job is definitely interacting with our readers. I get a really great insight into sort of our readers and what they're into, what they like, what they're all about, because I do the letters page, I do the Beano Boss pages, I read every single letters page and Beano Boss entry that comes in. So I do get a sense of where, what our readers are all about. They send in the most amazing creative things. When you then email them to tell them they're going to appear, you just get the loveliest emails back. Our readers are just fantastic, and they're what make it. We've had some really amazing letters from parents thanking us, thanking the Beano team for creating the comic every week because their kids just love it so much. It's always lovely to hear those kinds of things, just because it's good to know that you're being appreciated. DC Thomson obviously owns Beano, which is the longest running weekly children's comic. We hold a Guinness World Record for that. But also, did you know there is another... Our most famous character in Beano is Dennis the Menace, but there is another character called Dennis the Menace, and he was created in America. The first published on exactly the same day as our Dennis the Menace. But due to time differences, ours was published first. For advice to get a job like mine, I think my main piece of advice, particularly at the moment, is don't give up. Don't give up. Get yourself out there and get involved in things. It can be really hard when you're sitting at home by yourself just applying for jobs, either not hearing back or constantly getting rejection. It's really tough, it's really competitive, particularly for editorial. It's competitive for any publishing job, but editorial is particularly bad for that, and there aren't many jobs going in editorial. So it's always just don't be disheartened. The rejections and things like that, they do not change anything about your worth as a person. But if you're maybe struggling and you're maybe don't know why, have a maybe look at how you're writing your CVs, your cover letters, that kind of thing. Just going back and redoing them and reworking them. You might actually be doing amazing and writing amazing CVs and cover letters for every job, but there's just so many that it's hard to stand out. Make sure that you're paying attention to what experience you have and why that makes you special, why that makes you stand out, why they must have you as their employee, why you will bring so much to this role. As I said, it's so hard. Don't give up, keep trying, stay positive, be passionate, and follow your passions, because inevitably they will lead to opportunities. When I say follow your passions, yes, reading lots of books, fantastic, but maybe you find a niche that you go, oh, that's really interesting, I want to find out more about that. Say, as I said, like comics, say you're like, I'm really into graphic novels, maybe I want to find out, have a look at some other artists and things that are making comics, how did they do it, find out about those kinds of things. Go beyond surface level, I love books. I mean, I always end up with like a list of like 10 instead of just one. The first one that generally comes to mind is The Great Gatsby. I was 17 when I read it, and it really invoked, like, it sparked my love of English and studying it, and I just got it. It made me want to do English at university. Like, that's probably, if I'm gonna sum it up that way, that book was the one that told me that. In recent years, I've moved away from books that everybody should read and you need to be reading at the moment, because actually there is no book you should be reading. I've done an English degree and I came out of it and I didn't enjoy reading reading for fun, because I always had a list of books I needed to be reading, I should be reading, and then suddenly I'm let out in the wide world and actually nobody's marking you on what you're reading, nobody's marking you on the fact that maybe actually I just quite enjoy reading things that lets my brain stop thinking. Sometimes I want to read hard stuff, but mostly I just want to read good books. So what I would say is just read for fun, read often, read widely, and enjoy it.